A test to see what might be restricting your flexibility, particularly in the hamstrings. So it's whether or not it's neural tissue or neurodynamics, or whether it's muscle and fascia. The trick is to do the stretch and see where you find the pain or the sensation of stretching. So if we, for example, if we stand in parallel and bend down, if you feel the stretch in the back of the legs here where the hamstrings are, likelihood it's your hamstrings. If you feel it a bit more in the back of the knee and the calf, it might mean that actually it's your sciatic nerve that's feeling more of a stretch. So dynamic stretching might be more useful for you. That's one way to check. Because if you let your head come all the way down, and that increases that stretch down the back, that's your nervous system being put under tension. So dynamic stretching may well be the way to go. The other way to check is if you lie down, you take your leg up into a normal hamstring stretch. If you feel it in the back of the leg where the hamstring is, it's probably the hamstring. If you feel it more in the back of the knee or the calf or the foot, it's not your hamstring, that's your sciatic nerve and your nervous system being put under tension and responding to that. If you take the foot into flexion, you'll probably feel more of a stretch behind the knee and in the calf, and that's your sciatic nerve being put under stretch. So it's also something to watch when you're stretching in class. So if your teacher getting you to stretch like this, putting your head on your knees and pulling your toes up because it feels like a stronger stretch. It almost certainly will, but possibly not for the right reasons. It feels like a stronger stretch because your whole nervous system's been put on a lot of tension, which is fine if you don't then respond to it in a bad way. I was always one of those dancers who, the more I tried to stretch like that, the tighter I became. That's a mechanism of my nervous system responding by actually holding tension in the muscles as a protective mechanism. It's like a stretch reflex almost. So if you're one of those people, the best way to stretch is not going to be toes up, head down, putting lots of stress on the nervous system. The best way would be to come forward, keep the head up, which immediately takes some stress off of the nervous system, and then bring the toes into a point, and then you can just play around with articulating either the feet coming up and down, or potentially the knees, so from here to here. So that's actually making the nerves move through their sheath and through the body without putting loads of tension. There's moments that feel tight, but there's nothing that's hurting me. As opposed to if I go into a static stretch, head drops, toes up, I can feel my nerves in the back of my leg and they sort of scream at me, and I feel really, really tight. So by making it more dynamic, not holding stretches, potentially it can actually help your flexibility more. Some people love it and they get flexible with those kinds of methods, and that's fine. But if you're like me, where the more you tried to stretch, the tighter you felt, and the more you held it and the harder you worked, it might be that you need to back off a bit, make all your stretches more dynamic, and I've got other videos talking about that, so move through them. So keep your head up, keep your feet relaxed, and maybe move this way. Come up, come down, come up, come down. Or hold it and then play around with the knee movement, the ankle movement. You can take your head down and then come back up again. So you're constantly moving, you're going into a full stretch, you're maybe putting the nervous system on a little bit of a tension, and then you're backing off again. And you want to incorporate strength and control in your stretches as well, and I've got other videos that talk about that. But the way to tell, like I said, is where you're feeling the stretch and your response to stretching. But dynamic stretching tends to be better for strength and control, and there's no point in having flexibility unless you can control it. So it's worth doing both.